Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a very sad day for Kenyans because people had been waiting with bated breath the ruling of the Supreme Court on Okia Omutata's case on the Finance Bill 2023. When William Ruto the executive arm of the government compromised the legislatures to forcefully pass the Finance Bill 2023, Okia Omutata rushed to court to challenge this bill because, among other things, this bill sought to introduce housing levy that would mean that civil servants are deducted a certain amount of money for a period of years ostensibly to get some houses. And it also increased the value-added tax on fuel and petroleum products. And with that, you all understand that this would increase the prices of every basic commodity, because that would mean that the producers would now then pass the burden to the consumers. It also introduced taxes to civil servants, and many people cried foul on this. And Kenyans had been banking on Okia Omutata and the other petitioners to at least help them on this. Now, there were signs and symptoms that this bill was not going to see light of the day when in High Court, the judge that gave Kenyans some hope and stopped the implementation of this bill was hurriedly transferred to Mombasa to vacate the Nairobi offices. And then the Attorney General rushed to the Supreme Court and the game began there. Judge Thande lifted this and set aside the ruling of the High Court. And with that, Kenyans started feeling the heat of the finance bill. So it was being waited to see what Madam Martha Koome would do. But even again with that, there was no hope, because we know the relationship between the judiciary arm of the government and the executive. William Ruto has ensured that there is a state capture more fierce than what they used to complain about in the Uhuru era. Because if you look at parliament, you look at judiciary, whether it is the DPP or the independent institutions that are supposed to fight corruption, they are all in the pockets of William Samoei Ruto. You could even talk about the political parties' offices. They are being used. Do you remember how that office was used to frustrate Uhuru when they wanted to take away the Jubilee Party from him? So there isn't any independent institution today. That left only one option. Kenyans ganged up with the opposition to go and air their grievances on the streets. But again, what happened? They were killed, they were maimed, there was a lot of police brutality because William Samoei Ruto had set his eyes on the rotten price. The price was to ensure that the levies and the punitive taxes sell through at all cost. It pains Kenyans to realize that we are suffering courtesy of the dictates of the West. And this is something that we've really talked about every day. The World Bank is part and parcel of our problems because they have given William Ruto rules to follow. And if you study and try to find out what is happening with the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank and the USA, you will realize that in all the countries and the nations that they have a hand, three things must happen. If there were any subsidies on basic commodities like fuel, unga, electricity, the first thing that they do when they install their leader is to abandon all the subsidies. It is happening in Kenya because all the subsidies that were initiated and maintained by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta have been removed. All of them, on fuel, on electricity, on education, everything, on unga. It is happening in Nigeria. When Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in, the first thing that he did was to remove all the subsidies, because before you get to the most coveted land, the State House, before you are given that sword, before USA and UK give you your win, then you must agree on terms. And this is exactly what William Ruto is doing. Now, recently, the Supreme Court President, the Judiciary President, Madam Martha Koome, said that there is need to bridge a gap and ensure that they restore public confidence in their ruling. And I'm wondering, if this is the kind of ruling that we expect from our courts, how then are we going to restore public confidence? Because as we speak, if you ask the Kenyan citizenry, they will tell you that if you have a case against the executive, against William Ruto, then you better not even go to court, because they will rule in favor of William Samoei Ruto. There are a few cases that they will rule against William Ruto. But if it is something that the Western nation has got a hand, such as this, then trust me, you can't win against William Ruto. In the prior to passing of this bill, the government, under the guise of public participation, invited opinions from Kenyans, and every Kenyan who spoke said that they were against this bill. But what happened? Number one, they were ignored. Number two, even the legislatures were compromised. Those of Azimio were claiming that even the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, played some mischief. Some of them were sent to Tunisia. Some of them did not even know that they would be voting on that day. But even if they were there, William Ruto took advantage of the numerical strength, because many of the Azimio, legislators have been compromised, and they passed this bill by force. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is really very sad, and Kenyans are left, without any other option, because we have always depended on the courts. Whenever the executive goes wrong, we will run to the courts, because the courts are the only hope. And if the courts and the executive are sleeping on one bed, then there is no hope for us. So this makes it official, because this is the final ruling. There isn't any other. This is the Supreme Court is the apex court. Once they have ruled on something, then it is over. We can't go anywhere now. Now what happens? We must brace ourselves. And even to the hustler nation that were promised some cheap cost of living, things begin today. You all know that the cost of education is just too high. The cost on unga, electricity is just too high. Now, at least there was some implementation, but we were waiting to see what the courts will do. Now, Madam Martha Koome has given the green light that from today, life must become so hard and we must brace ourselves. It goes against William Ruto's promise. Akisema, nikiweka tu Biblia chini, nitafanya nini? I will ensure that the cost of living comes down. I will deal with cartels. Now we are in a country that cartels have taken over. Those are not my words. But the deputy president himself said that they have taken over the coffee and tea sector. And I remember Kimani Chunga himself confessed that cartels have also taken over the education sector. We all understand that William Ruto recently said that cartels, mambo ni matatu, uende binguni, uhame Kenya, ama you go to jail. So cartels are everywhere. Yet this bill is now official. I don't know what is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, but things are not looking good. And this relationship between the judiciary and the executive government really paints a very dark future for Kenya, because it means that William Ruto will ever have his way. I know Madam Meg Whitman is very happy wherever she is, because Kenya is like a puppet being ruled from Washington, D.C. Whatever they want will take place, ladies and gentlemen. And I can assure you, we are not ruling ourselves. This is neocolonialism. at its best.